Still, his curiosity got the better of him after a moment, and he approached. As he got closer, he realized that the figure sprawled face down on the sand was not wearing breeches or a shirt, but rather a shift and skirts. The body on the beach was that of a woman. I'm Lars Hedbor. I am the leading novelist of the American Revolution with 19 books in print. Each of my novels is based in a different colony or future state, and they all focus on telling the stories of ordinary people. There's been so much written about Washington and Jefferson. Of course, now we get Alexander Hamilton, which is great, but there's very little written about people like you and me and how the revolution not only turned their lives upside down, but more importantly, how their individual choices and actions wound up shaping the history that we now study. This next book is in East Florida. The Floridas are interesting because we completely forget about them. So I'm currently writing about St. Augustine, Florida. And there's a wonderful description of St. Augustine, Florida, written in 1784, I think. So about a year after my book is set. And he literally goes kind of neighborhood by neighborhood. Here's what it's like. And here's what the surrounding area is like. And here's what some of the quaint customs that I observed there were. And here's how those are changing right in this moment as this shifts from British to Spanish rule. And here's why that's painful for the people of the time. And it's just like, you can't reproduce that by going and standing in a place. Having somebody who's writing this stuff down as it's happening is just, for me, it's catnip. And what it means for my readers is that they're going to come away with a much richer understanding of what that moment of change felt like for my characters. Number 19 is coming out on July 2nd, which is the true birthday of the United States of America, because that's when the Continental Congress actually voted for independence. It took them 2 days to get the paperwork together. I'm going to read today from my forthcoming book, which is set in East Florida. It is focused on the experience of the British Loyalists, and particularly on the experience of Loyalists who had evacuated to East Florida, and specifically St. Augustine, from some of the southern colonies. Ammius was mildly surprised to find himself alone on this stretch of the beach. He'd passed beneath the walls of the fort at the north end of town, reasoning that anything that made its way into the protected body of water where this port lay might be more likely to fetch ashore opposite the mouth of the harbor. He wondered now whether others who were more experienced in this sort of salvage hunting might have richer ground to cover based on experience. Frowning to himself, he made his way down the beach to the first clump of debris he could find. As he approached, he noted the weathered, old appearance of the crate and was unsurprised to find that the other side of it was entirely missing. It had probably been on this shore since before he'd even arrived in town. The next likely-looking dark mound on the sand was more interesting and appeared to be newly deposited. He bent to open the heavy leather pack and found it full of sandy, wet clothing, a man's breeches and a ruined, silk-lined waistcoat. He drew out the breeches and considered them for a moment before tossing them aside. Far too large for his own use and stained by the wet leather, he could not imagine that they would have any value to anyone else either. Still, the pack might have come ashore in the night, which gave him some hope that he might yet find something of value. Further up on the beach, an irregular seaweed-entangled mass turned out to be a drowned goat, and he backed away with revulsion at the sightless, cloudy eyes. He didn't particularly like live goats, and the sight of a dead one was more than he could bear. Another dark mass, partially obscured by seaweed, lay higher on the sand, and he approached it with trepidation. As he neared it, he suddenly stopped, horror clutching in his chest. Sticking clearly out of the pile was a bare, small, human foot. He suddenly understood why some of the men at the quay said that they had no interest in treasure hunting. It was one thing to poke through the property of a man who was probably drowned in the ocean, but it was quite another to find him or his son as a corpse. Still, his curiosity got the better of him after a moment, and he approached. As he got closer, he realized that the figure sprawled face down on the sand was not wearing breeches or a shirt, but rather a shift and skirts. The body on the beach was that of a woman. He stood dumbfounded at the discovery, trying to order his thoughts enough to figure out what he ought to do. Tell the sheriff or the magistrate, he supposed, but he'd never had any contact with either. Whoever she was, she deserved at least a decent burial. He could not bear to look any more closely and had turned away to head back to town when he heard a low groan from behind him. His blood ran cold in his gut, and it took every ounce of his courage to turn back around and look. The woman was moving, struggling to turn herself over. She was alive.